Welcome, and in today's little video we're going to look at a few different things, beginning with this floating Ohio building in San Francisco. This was shared with me in a comment by Watching Closely, and an excellent piece of mystery associated with this Panama Pacific International Exposition held in San Francisco in 1915. And I'm sure that by now many of you have seen different videos on these mysterious world's fairs, and just amazing that they built this fair as a temporary event, just like in Chicago, just like in every major city in the entire world. They built the same architectural style, had a big party, and destroyed everything, and would never rebuild anything as beautiful again. And that's fine. But this just really opens up a whole other can of worms that I'm afraid I may not be able to get into today. But the whole idea of the Panama Canal, which is what this whole fair here in San Francisco is supposed to be celebrating. Even though there was probably an excuse for all the different fairs, but this was the one for San Francisco, the Panama Pacific Expo. And I began to dig into the story a little about how Theodore Roosevelt made this canal in Panama. I'm not really sure how that would unfold, but nevertheless decided that it was too cumbersome to sail ships all around South America to come back to the western coast of the United States, so he made this canal. And if you look at this canal, I mean, this is not some sort of canal that was made in a couple years like these supposed World's Fairs. I mean, just ridiculous after ridiculous. And here, let's just get right to it, is the Ohio State Building. And the Ohio State Building, now they're telling us that they're floating buildings around. After they're done with them, if they didn't demolish it, they either sold anything of value that they could, and we're told that they even floated buildings from place to place, in this case, from one part of California to another. Once the fair was closed to the public, the company had the enormous task of cleaning out the entire site. Hoping to recoup some additional revenue, the company sold every fixture, piece of equipment, plant, and building off to the highest bidder. A few agencies and municipalities purchased the smaller buildings that could be transported by boat to new locations. San Mateo County purchased the Ohio building. Marin County purchased the Wisconsin and Virginia buildings, and the Army maintained the Oregon building. Really silly. And when we look at these buildings, there's just no way that these are even new construction. I mean, look at the weathering here. This is not a 2-year-old building. And I'm not sure, how they pulled this off in the time period right in front of these very people. And probably there was a different story back then. And it changes a little bit with every next generation. But really amazing. And this is clearly like some kind of a station, some kind of a hub for transport, and not some temporary World's Fair building. The Ohio building, and without getting into too much more, I'll move on to the next part. This will require some more investigation. This next part was about a Native American tribe originally, but I think it applies to all displaced people in all parts through time and in present. There were once a people, a great people, on a land that had a clear operating system of the mind, which allowed their people to operate and function for thousands of years. Now another people came from across the sea and tried to conquer these people, and they were fought off for 200 years. And finally somebody came and said, let us give these people property and cattle, but let's not give it to all the people, just a few. And these people never had a concept of ownership of property, animal, land, and now suddenly this term exists in the mind, and one enjoys this new gift, and one wants to keep his gift, and others want what he has, and pretty soon others begin to acquire and want to keep others away from taking what is theirs. And now the people no longer protected their own as a whole, their own people, that is, but rather their own possessions and their own property. And when the next wave came to conquer these people, it was done with ease, and there was very little battle. And this reminds me of the story in the Bible where the devil tempts Jesus and offers him all of these lands, everything that the eye can see, if only he will be corrupted by these ideas. And in fact, the devil knew he could not corrupt without this idea. And so this was a trick. These were words used to portray an idea that before then did not exist. And this is the world that we are living in. Except our forefathers were tricked, and we have been raised and conditioned in these falsities. And this facilitates the rewriting of history and our language and the system as a whole. And this system is designed to keep us operating just like a computer, an already corrupted computer. And when we begin to realize this, the whole system begins to fall apart. Any one part of the system opens up the door to the rest. And just as it was removed, it seems like this knowledge now is being given back. And I've recently received some comments and just a lot of synchronicities in my life that have been pointing to language and the words that we use. And even when it comes to our court system, this is the ticket to our freedom, is understanding how to use our words correctly and not speak Babel or Babylonian, but to speak clearly. And this is kind of where I am in my life on my other personal research. And I find it absolutely fascinating, and it's a big rabbit hole. But I just thought I'd bring it up today just touch on the subject. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. And recently somebody asked me to have a little look at this Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Youth. And this little article has been put out by the Smithsonian. And half a millennia ago, in 1513, the Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de Leon departed Puerto Rico for the island of Bimini, an uncharted island in what is now the Bahamas. He eventually landed instead in Florida, where he staked a claim for the Spanish crown and ensured himself a spot in the annals of history. As legend has it, the scholars have maintained for centuries that Ponce de Leon was in search of the Fountain of Youth, a fabled wellspring thought to give everlasting life to whoever bathed or drank from it. But new scholarship contradicts the old fable and suggests that Ponce was interested not only in longevity but political gain. So, right off the get-go, I think the Smithsonian, famed for pulling the wool over our eyes, wants us to think that Ponce de Leon never searched for the Fountain of Youth. And now I would go a little further and probably say that Ponce de Leon never existed. Period. Now, this is a very similar story to Christopher Columbus and the idea of this man sailing and discovering America. And really, I think that these stories are more so designed to give us the idea that there was no America. There was no foundations other than a savage people, as we're led to believe, primitive in comparison. And yet, myself and several channels have really shown that this history is much older, especially when concerning the Americas. And there's so many proofs of an older culture that existed in this land. And we're told that pioneers come across, and Mormons in Salt Lake, the gold rush in San Francisco, all these ideas, all these stories lending to the idea that we are the ones who are settling this land, when I think the photographic evidence really proves this over and over. There's no way we built everything that we see here. And in some cases, especially where a lot of the buildings are found underground. Now, I do love the idea of a Fountain of Youth, but I don't think we're finding it in this tale. And really, I think what we see when we even look at the island of Puerto Rico is much more ancient building that took place, and more so architecture that we see in other parts of the world, very old castle-like, and giant walls, and even what appeared to be concretes employed. And I think Puerto Rico was one of the first anomalies that I discovered in the Americas, along with the base of the Statue of Liberty, of course, showing a beautiful star fort, clearly something much older than we've been told. And here I wanted to show my little likely spam folder that has been automatically generated by YouTube, and very sad and disheartening once again. I mean, there's no reason. Here, I love your videos. This has been put in my spam folder automatically by YouTube. So I have to go through and approve it, and then I have to go find it to comment on it. I can't just comment right here. So very, very sad, and very nice comments that really don't merit being thrown into the spam folder. Here's one from good old Lee, asking me what I'm doing. No, there's nothing wrong, nothing spammy about this. And before I can even respond to it, again, I must approve it and then go find it. So here, a recent video again by Lee. And just no reason at all that this should be placed here. So I approve it and then I can go find it and comment on it. Very interesting and very sad that, you know, they would decide what is spam and actually make it quite difficult to approve some of these. You see, this one is not letting me approve either. So, just something worth mentioning and sharing. And that's all I've got today. I thank you so much for watching. Do have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.